Namah Shri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Surai Satchit Sukha Swarupaya Swami Tapahari. Good morning, everybody. I know it's not a particularly good morning, but I've just come from California, so I'm used to a different kind of a good morning. But then this is New York, and so we are used to this. Today is a special morning. We are celebrating the birth anniversary of Swami Vivekananda. In fact, his birthday, according to the Indian calendar, was a few days ago, and we celebrated it here with a formal worship. And by the English calendar, it is on 12th January. In fact, 12th January is now a national holiday in India. The government of India has declared it the National Youth Day. That shows the significance, the continuing significance of Vivekananda. The fact that we are here today, gathered in this place, the Vedanta Society of New York, the fact that Vedanta has acquired some prominence in world thought, the fact that Eastern religions, various sects of Hinduism, various types of Buddhism, and all other kinds of practices, yoga, has acquired this worldwide significance and prominence, is due primarily to this one person, Swami Vivekananda. Philip Goldberg, in his book American Veda, he traces the impact of Eastern thought upon American thought. And he traces the whole movement, he traces it back to the advent of Swami Vivekananda on these shores in 1893. In 1893, he came and spoke at the World Parliament of Religions in Chicago. So somebody said, Chicago discovered Vivekananda, but it is really New York which discovered Vivekananda, the guru, the teacher. This is where he actually started teaching Vedanta, in this very city. This is where he completed his work on Raja Yoga and Karma Yoga. And these books were published. So he's a remarkable person. And he was aware of his mission in life. He said, as Buddha had a message for the East, I have a message for the West. Even long before he became the great Swami Vivekananda, when he was this young college boy in Calcutta, his guru, Sri Ramakrishna, always from the very beginning, from the moment he saw him, recognized the inherent greatness of this young lad. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, I can't believe that such a one as this lives in the city of Calcutta, in the midst of all the hustle and bustle of the imperial capital at that time, the crowds, the worldliness, in the midst of that, such a spiritual one lives. Sri Ramakrishna used to say he is a dhyana siddha. Dhyana siddha means perfected in meditation. He is an ancient sage, perfected in meditation. Intensely spiritual. He used to say, if that infinite being, Brahman or God, whatever you call it, if that does not exist, and there is no such thing, then what's the meaning of life? Why live this life? Life is meaningless and hollow. If it does exist, if there is such a thing as Brahman, an infinite immortal soul which we are, if that is true, then what is the value of this life? That is the reality. That is what we should attain. So that kind of attitude he had towards life. And Sri Ramakrishna trained him. It's very interesting the way Sri Ramakrishna trained him. You see, he always was very devout. He believed in God, though he went through a period of intense skepticism at one time. But he belonged to one of those many reform movements which dotted the landscape of the changing Indian society in late 19th century. So one of them was the Brahmo Samaj, which was quite popular in Calcutta in those days. It was a Hindu reform movement. And they believed that God is there, an infinite being is there, whom we worship and love. But he did not believe in two things. One, the radical monastic doctrine of Advaita Vedanta, that all are in a sense the divine. The divine is immanent in everything, in all beings, in all of us. We are in reality that divine, the divine being. That he did not accept. And also he did not accept the traditional Hinduism, rituals and the worship of images. He did not like that because the Brahma Samaj forbade it. Now Sri Ramakrishna did exactly that. He trained him in these two things. Sri Ramakrishna said, he used to say that there's this book called the Ashtavakra Gita, which is the most radical non-dualistic text you'll ever find. And Sri Ramakrishna used to say that, read it to me. He would call Narendranath, his pre-monastic name, read it out to me. And when he would read that all is Brahman, the entire world is Brahman, you are Brahman, I am Brahman, the infinite being, we are one with God. And Vivekananda would say, Narendranath would say, have the sages gone mad? This is blasphemous. The pot is God and the door is God, the table is God, the chair is God. This is crazy. Sri Ramakrishna would say, okay, you don't have to like it, just read it out for me. For me, you read it out. It was, one day he was saying these things, Vivekananda, he was talking with Hajra, another skeptic, very interesting character, who used to live in Dakshineshwar, in the temple garden of Kali there. And they were talking and making fun of non-dual Vedanta. The pot is also God, the table is God, and the door is God, and the chair is God. What craziness. And Sri Ramakrishna came out of his room and said, what are you talking about? So we are saying this is what we are saying. And Sri Ramakrishna did not say anything. He was in ecstasy. He went forward and touched Vivekananda, and that blessed touch. Vivekananda used to say, religion can be handed over. He says, just like I can give you a flower, in the same way, actually spirituality can be given. I have seen it myself. Upon the touch of Sri Ramakrishna, Narendranath saw inside and outside that one luminous infinite existence. Right here, hidden from mortal eyes, but it's right here, right now. And he saw it. And somehow he went back home. There's a park, it's still there, it's called Hedua Park. And there are those iron railings in the park. And Vivekananda caught hold of those railings and banged his head against them to see if they're substantial. He felt that light of pure consciousness within and without, everywhere. He would see the coaches, the horse-drawn carriages rushing along towards him, and he did not feel like stepping out of the way because he felt that same reality is there and same reality here. Luckily he did step out of the way, otherwise we wouldn't be here today. And it went on for 3 days until it finally subsided, this kind of divine inebriation. And it's the same Vivekananda who made fun of Vedanta, who would come to this country and he would proclaim, unhesitatingly, he would proclaim, Christs and Krishnas and Buddhas are waves of the ocean which I am. I, not in the sense of the person Vivekananda, Brahman, the infinite ocean of existence, consciousness, bliss. We are all, most ordinary among us, even down to the meanest little creature, up to the great avatars, Christ or Buddha or Krishna, all the great teachers of humanity, up to all of them we are waves in that ocean of existence, consciousness, bliss. And having realized this, what did Sri Ramakrishna do? Next, just the opposite. What Vivekananda had long rejected, the traditional old Hindu worship in the images in the temples. Sri Ramakrishna used to go to, he was a worshipper of Kali, in the Kali temple. And Vivekananda didn't like all that. Now, Vivekananda Narendranath, he fell in hard circumstances. His father died, the family was in debt. Terrible poverty. From a rich family, his father was a well-known lawyer, but he died leaving many debts. To terrible poverty. And a talented young man like Vivekananda couldn't get a job. He would wander around the streets of Calcutta from door to door trying to get a job to earn money to feed his mother and his younger brothers and sisters. And he couldn't. In despair, he came to Ramakrishna and said, please bless me that my family may not suffer so much. And Ramakrishna said, pray to the Divine Mother. He seemed so innocent, he was quite mischievous actually. So, he said, pray to the Divine Mother. He knew that Narendra wouldn't go there. And Narendranath also said, sir, she listens to you, not to me. So you go and tell her that it may be so. And Sri Ramakrishna said, look, I can't ask for these things. But she will listen. Today is a good day, Tuesday. I think it was Tuesday or Saturday. So there's a Divine Mother's Day. If you go to the Kali temples in Calcutta, on Tuesdays and Saturdays, it's almost impossible to get in because of the long queues. Thousands of people from early morning standing there. So finally Vivekananda, Narendranath had to go to the temple. And when he went there, he wanted to pray that my family should have enough to eat and enough to get along with. And when he went in there, instead of that image, he saw the luminous form of the Divine Mother, shining, gracious, looking down upon him. And he was lost. And he prayed, "Oh Mother, give me knowledge, spiritual knowledge, jnana. Give me devotion, bhakti. Give me vairagya, dispassion for the world. Give me viveka, the ability to see the difference between the real and the unreal." And see, he prayed and prayed and prayed and came back to Ramakrishna, overwhelmed. And Sri Ramakrishna said, "What happened?" "Oh, I saw the Divine Mother by your grace and I prayed." And Sri Ramakrishna said, "Oh, that's good, but did you ask for money?" And Narendranath, he just came out of a stupor and he said, "Oh, I forgot. Go back quickly, there's time." And he went back and it's again the same vision, and again he prayed for love and devotion, and it came back the same thing. Ramakrishna said, "Oh, you are incorrigible. Go back and ask for money. That's what you wanted, isn't it?" So it happened 3 times. And he came back. He couldn't ask. He couldn't ask for anything worldly, even in dire circumstances. And he came back and he said, I can't ask for that. I can't ask for money to God. And then Sri Ramakrishna actually was happy. He wanted this. But he blessed Narendranath. "I bless you that your family may not want for the simplest of necessities of life." In Bengali he said, "Mota bhat kapor," which means rough cloth and ordinary food. And so Narendranath, very interesting. Advaita Vedanta, the non-dual Vedanta. We are all Brahman, one infinite ocean of existence, consciousness, bliss. And at the other time, the most personal of personal gods, Kali. Very difficult for people, even in India, to, people are scared of Kali. And in the West especially, to understand that imagery of Kali, which seems dreadful. Most personal of personal gods. Vivekananda had to accept that also. Both of them together. And there is a meaning in this. Later on, here in the West, Swami Vivekananda said, "In the West, I have taught only the Upanishads. In them, there is enough strength to live your life upon, and the Upanishads are in themselves enough for the liberation of man. For our liberation, for enlightenment, for moksha, nirvana. Upanishads are enough. Vedanta is enough," he said. "That's what I've taught." But, then he says, "Kali worship is my special fad," he used to say. And he said, if you want to accomplish something great in life, some great mission, like Vivekananda himself had, what greater mission? To awaken one of the most ancient civilizations which had gone into hibernation, to awaken his own motherland, India, to spread the message of thousands of years of spirituality powerfully to the whole world. That mission, and all to be accomplished in less than a decade. So if you have a great mission in life, great work to be accomplished, you need the blessings of Shakti, of the Divine Mother, of Kali. Not that it's relevant, but the place where I became a monk, this pilgrimage center in India called Vaidyanatha Dham, Deoghar. So it's a Shiva temple. Shiva is a representation of Brahman, existence, consciousness, bliss. We sing, Chidananda Rupaha Shivoham. I am of the nature of infinite bliss and consciousness. I am Shiva. So that is the real nature of Shiva. Now thousands of people go to the temple, especially if there's a month where people go to, that you have to pour water on the head of Shiva. You definitely get flu. Pouring so much, he continuously gets water poured on his head. So that's the worship. You go and pour Ganges water on the head of Shiva and worship Shiva with bay leaves and pray. Now, of the thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people who worship, who come every year to that temple, most of them, they come with some worldly desire. Some kind of desire. Yeah? May my children prosper, may such and such person get a job, or such and such person get children, or something, or cured of diseases, or general welfare, prosperity of the family, and so on. So people come for that. And now they know Shiva, being existence, consciousness, bliss, is same for everything. Whether you are happy or sad, it's the same Brahman. Whether you are rich or poor, it's the same Brahman. Shiva, in fact, as far as worldly success is concerned, Shiva is a bit useless. Because Shiva himself is a beggar. And he doesn't have any worldly possessions. Now, opposite to the temple of Shiva is the temple of the Divine Mother, Shakti. And so, she is the one who grants, if you would rather have it this way, prosperity rather than poverty, health rather than sickness. If you would rather have it this way, and most people would, then you have to approach the Divine Mother. You have to pray to Shakti. So there is a very interesting custom. The point I am making here is a very interesting custom in the temple. If you go there, you will see there are these colored streamers, strings, which are connected from the crest of the temple of Shiva to the crest of the temple of Shakti. So they make a wish, and then they pay. There is a class of priests whose only job is to climb up on the temple on the temple walls. They're sheer walls, soaring up into the sky. So there are this group of people whose job is hereditary. Only they can do it. They can hold these big chains and then climb up on the walls of the temple and fix your streamer from this temple to that temple. So you connect Shakti and Shiva and your wish is fulfilled. So, and the custom is when you come back after your wish is fulfilled, maybe years later, you take down one of them. You don't know which one is yours. There are tens of thousands of them. So you take down one of them. And you again pay to take one of them down, that your wish has been fulfilled. Anyway, interesting custom. But Vivekananda said, that is the importance of non-dual Vedanta, the basis of spirituality. But also, God in a personal form. It may not be Kali, it may be our Father in heaven in Christianity, or Vishnu, or in whichever form. But Shakti, the worship of the personal God. The special teaching of Sri Ramakrishna. That's why when Vivekananda first attained Nirvikalpa Samadhi, or the highest spiritual Samadhi, and then after that, Sri Ramakrishna asked him, what do you want now? And Vivekananda said that I want to remain in this state. Once in a while I'll come down to this worldly consciousness and eat a little bit maybe, and then go back into that state. I want to remain in that, absorbed in God. Now that's the goal of spiritual life. If you look at the Shastras, the scriptures, they'll tell you that's what the yogis are aiming at. To discover God and remain absorbed in God. And Sri Ramakrishna tells him, when his disciple has reached the culmination of spiritual attainment, and he tells the disciple, fie on you, shame on you. I thought you would be like a great banyan tree under the shade of which thousands of people for centuries to come, he means us, for centuries to come would find shade and comfort. And here you are thinking only about your own enlightenment, about your own spiritual joy. So he converted Vivekananda, the yogi, who wanted to retreat. He said, all I wanted to do was to go into a Himalayan cave and meditate and meditate and meditate. And he actually tried. There is a place near Almora. There is a cave. I went up to that cave. It's very difficult. There is no straight path up to that. After a certain point, you have to make a rough climb up to that. And Vivekananda went into that cave and he sat there in meditation. He had no desire to come back again to this world before he came to the West. And he said, it's as if somebody ejected me from the cave. I was pushed out. He said, Ramakrishna made me a slave to the mother, to Kali. He said, I didn't want to do this work. And Ramakrishna said, your very bones will make you do the work. And Ramakrishna said, here is God, you have attained God, but what you wanted, you got it. But the key is with me now, I'll lock it. He says exactly these are the words, the key shall remain with me. And when the work of the mother is done, I shall give you the key again, you can open it. And it's true. He had talked about Vivekananda's spiritual stature to other disciples, Shivananda and Tulyananda and others, who Vivekananda really is. And he had cautioned them, don't tell him. Because if he really feels that, if he realizes that, he won't stay here. He'll fly back to the realm he has come from. He is one of these eternally perfected ones who come once in a while to earth to help humanity. It reminds me of the comets, like Halley's Comet, 75 years later, blazes across the sky. Similarly, like a spiritual comet. And towards the end of his life, just 10 years, the work he did, he came in 1893 and he passed away in 1902 in India. He used to say, I shall not live to see 40. He wore himself out. I was reading, we calculated, when in the United States here, he spread Vedanta across this land. He used to give 14 lectures a week. Like the Sunday talk we have here, Sunday talk. At the end of the week we have this lecture. And like this, he would give 14 powerful lectures a week on the average. And those lectures were not this, 45 minutes, 1 hour. Sometimes they would go on for 1.5 hours, 2 hours. And in those days, he traveled by coach and by train across this land. And he wore himself out. He exhausted himself. And he went back to India. He said, I will not live to see 40. Towards the end of his life, somebody asked him. One day he was sitting in Belur Mutt. He was sick. Somebody asked him, Swami, do you know who you are? And he said, to the astonishment and anxiety of all, he said, now I know. Now I know. He said quietly. And by that time, he was incandescent. The second time he had come back to the West, he came once, and second time he came back, Josephine MacLeod said, the Swami has become thinner, but he's glowing. This is the intense purity to him, something that's shining forth. He does not seem mortal anymore. And she says, it was inspiring to see him, but she says, I was afraid to see him. I knew that he's not long for this earth. And his power was something incredible. Vivekananda himself said, there are 3 stages in spiritual life. One is, of course, before spiritual life starts, we are not interested. Or maybe we are atheistic or agnostic. But when spiritual life starts, the first stage is, there is something called God and I must find God. So there is something, this God, and I'm different from God. So God is something outside, in the temple or the Vedanta society or the church or somewhere. Or in heaven, somewhere. The second stage comes when one feels God is within oneself. One looks within oneself and feels, so one becomes meditative and tries to realize God through prayer and meditation. Within oneself, second stage. And the third stage comes when one finds God within oneself and everywhere else also. Those are 3 stages. But Swami Ashokananda says in the third stage, where you find God, actually find God within yourself and within everybody else. In that also there are 3 stages. What are the 3 stages? First you see God in everybody and you realize this person who is suffering so much is the divine reality himself or herself. The immortal soul, the Brahman is right here. The person doesn't know it. If only they would know. He would say, Vivekananda would say with a great touch of pathos sometimes, if only you knew yourself as you truly are. If only you knew yourself as you truly are. So if only they would know what is within them, then they would be able to overcome all suffering. Life would be a blessing for them. And so one is overcome with great compassion. And one wants to show these people the way to spiritual realization. That's at the first stage of the third stage. And Vivekananda often was in this state. That's how he taught. He says, I have fallen in love with man. He says to one of his disciples, it may be that I may have to be born again. I have fallen in love with man. I am ready to go to hell. I'm ready to go to hell if I can help even one person. So I have fallen in love with man. And helping others to show them the path to the divine. That becomes an overwhelming mission. Buddha said karuna, the sense of deep compassion for others. I asked one senior monk that we read in the life stories of Swami Brahmananda, Swami Shivananda, that our gurus, who were the disciples of the direct disciples, the direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, including Vivekananda himself, how much they scolded our gurus, when they were young Swamis, when the young brahmacharis. So why would they scold them so much? Why shout at them for the slightest of infringements? What was going on there? And the Swami told me, the direct disciples, they could clearly see God is right here. Just a little bit of effort and a person can make his or her life blessed. You can realize God in this very life. Really, if you try a little bit. Swami Ramakrishnananda, I think, one of the direct disciples, he writes to a young student who was preparing for examinations. He said, I bless you that you will do well in your examinations and study hard, but know the amount of effort that you are putting in for your examinations. With a fraction of that, you can realize God. So you feel that, and you see, why aren't these people realizing God? So they push. And they also knew that they didn't have much time, that these people had to be trained and brought up to that level. Once Swami, I'm deviating from the subject, but still, it's interesting. Swami Akhandananda, one of the direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, many years after Vivekananda passed away. Swami Akhandananda had come to Belur Much. Swami Shivananda was the president of the order. And at night, Swami Akhandananda was in the next room to Swami Shivananda. He was very old, both of them were very old. A young monk had been asked to serve Swami Akhandananda, to stay with him at night. And so the young monk made his bed on the floor, and Akhandananda was on the bed. And the young monk he made his bed and then promptly went to sleep at night. And Swami Akhandananda stared at him. And then the young monk suddenly woke up to a sound of pounding. He saw Swami Akhandananda was pounding on the door to Swami Shivananda's room. He said, brother, wake up. And Swami Shivananda also was strangely enough awake. And he said, what is it, brother? Look at this young man. He's sleeping. He has come to realize God and he's sleeping at night. And then he said to Shivananda, did we ever sleep at night when we were with Ramakrishna, with the Paramahamsa, when we were trying to realize God? Look, he has come to realize God. And he's sleeping at night. And you can imagine the condition of the poor young man. I'm sure he went red in the face. And Shivananda, of course, quieted Akhandananda down. Yes, he will, don't worry. He'll take his time, but he'll realize God. So, this was the reason why they scored it. So, that's the first stage. You see the divinity within everybody. And you wish that they could realize it. There is a higher stage where you see that the human aspect is a game, a leela, a play. The divinity is real. It's the same God in the saintly and in the sinner. The same God in the learned and the ignorant and the rich and the poor. And the rich and poor, saintly and sinner, spiritual person and non-spiritual person and materialistic person, it's the play of the same divinity. At that point you don't want to teach anyone. The presence of the divinity is so powerful. Whom will you teach? Will you teach God? So their consciousness goes to that level. And Vivekananda sometimes would say, one lady in San Francisco said, Swami, this world is like a school where we come to learn our lessons and we evolve and grow. And Vivekananda on occasion had himself said this. But that occasion, on that day, he laughed and said, who told you so, madam? It is no school. It is a circus and we are clowns and we tumble about and we have a roaring good time. Suffering and sorrow and all of this is a game that we play. That's a second stage. And Vivekananda would often remain in that stage. Many of the direct disciples, Swami Shivananda, once, when he was the president of the order, disciples were flocking into the room and bowing down to him. And he started bowing down to them. And they were discomfited. The president of the order, Swami Shivananda, and so a monk said to the Swami, Swami, stop doing that. They're feeling embarrassed. You should teach them. Why are you bowing down to them? And Swami Shivananda said that, how can I teach them when I see the divinity standing in front of me? It's only when I bow down to the divinity, to God, that the human aspect appears before me. And then I can speak to them. Otherwise, how can I teach God? So that's the second stage. And the third stage, Swami Ashokananda says, beyond that, where all difference disappears. You cannot see the human aspect anymore at all. Not even a game. It's God and God alone. And there you cannot even express anything. So that's, one goes into Samadhi. So Vivekananda was sometimes in that stage also. This power. Swami Shivananda said to Swami Ashokananda himself, and Ashokananda reports this, Swami Shivananda told him that towards the end, Swami Vivekananda, when he came back from the West to India, he perpetually lived in the superconscious state. That flash, that intuition, which after a lifetime of spiritual practice, one can get a flash and one is blessed. Life is transformed clearly before and after. Life becomes different. That intuition, that stage, Shivananda says Vivekananda perpetually lived in that towards the end of his life. Another person, a disciple in Madras, in Chennai, told one of the monks, Ashokananda in fact, that he clearly saw that Vivekananda, when he came back from the West and he was in Chennai, in Madras, there was a series of little samadhis throughout the day. Throughout the day, when he lived with Vivekananda, he would often go into samadhi. It was not perceptible unless you were discerning enough. Very much like his own master, Sri Ramakrishna, throughout the day. And he had this power actually of giving spirituality. Once in Belur Mutt, Swami Vivekananda was sitting there on the little cot under the mango tree. The mango tree is still alive. That mango tree. Barely, we are trying to keep it alive. We put supports and all that for the branches. And it still gives mangoes. So he used to sit underneath that mango tree, and people would come from Calcutta, gather around him, and he would speak with them on the courtyard of the monastery. And one day, he was speaking about realizing Brahman, realizing God. Saying God is right here, Brahman is right here, everywhere, in every experience. And then he says, just see Brahman, just see it. And the reminiscence goes like this. The moment Vivekananda said this, something incredible happened. A deep hush descended on the entire courtyard, and all the people there became indrawn. And everybody's mind became elevated into some unknown spiritual realm. And depending on the level of the person, we all had spiritual experiences at that moment. Just because Vivekananda said it, see God right now. And Swami Premananda, another direct disciple, he was walking across the courtyard with a plate of offerings to be made to the Lord, the puja offerings. He was walking across the courtyard. He was not part of the conversation. He just heard, see Brahman now. And the description is incredible. Between one step and the other, he froze. And he stood like that, and his face glowing and went into samadhi. His hair standing on end. Like this, it continued for some time. Absolute deep silence in that courtyard, and a thick, palpable spiritual atmosphere. After some time, Vivekananda himself said to Swami Premananda, Baburam, you can go now. And Premananda started walking, and they again became a little normal, looking at, seeing other people around. So he could actually hand over this spirituality. Swami Vivekananda, you see, the connection between realizing the highest Advaita Vedanta and realizing Kali, the Divine Mother, the connection of this is at the root of his teaching of practical Vedanta. Vedanta which will not only enable you to get moksha, liberation from this samsara, but also whose light you can bring to bear upon this life and make this life a blessing, a philosophy by which everyone can live. Not only after realization, even before realizing Brahman. Swami Vivekananda said, Vedanta must not be only philosophy and intellectual gymnastics. Vedanta must be intensely practical. He said, this fictitious difference between our ordinary secular life and our spiritual life, fictitious difference must disappear. Vedanta Society and Wall Street. Swami, enormous difference. Vivekananda says, fictitious difference. It must disappear. Sister Nivedita, in her introduction, powerful introduction to the complete works of Swami Vivekananda, she says that all the teachings of Vivekananda were already there in the Upanishads and the Gita. There is nothing new there. If Vivekananda had not come, those teachings would have still been there. It's just that maybe he gave it in a powerful way and spread it around the world. But The teachings were already there. And if there is anything new, she writes, if there is anything new in the teachings, what is new and significant in the teachings of Vivekananda is this, that the one and the many are the same reality. One, Brahman. Many, this word. She says it's the same reality. This is the crown. He says this is the crowning achievement of Swami Vivekananda, was to show that the one and the many are the same reality, seen by different spiritual seekers at different levels of spiritual realization. And what is the consequence of this? She says, henceforth, no division between the spiritual and the secular. To labor is to pray. To have and hold is as sacred a trust as to quit and renounce. She says the office, the workshop, the kitchen, the schoolroom are as fit a place for the meeting between man and God as the cell of a monk or the prayer hall of the devout. What a powerful new philosophy. She says, Vivekananda told me, meaning her, Sister Nivedita, that religion, art and science are all means to the realization of the Absolute. Religion is a means to realization of God, fine, we know that. But art also, science also. He said that. But then he added, but you need the philosophy of Advaita, non-dualism, to understand this. Otherwise you cannot understand this. How is it possible? So this is a new philosophy, a powerful philosophy, to how to spiritualize the whole of life. Difference between, here is my religious life, there is my home life, office life, school life, life in, you are in the temple here and in Trader Joe's there. The same reality can be perceived. It is possible. That's why Vedanta, he says, in that sense, Vedanta must become intensely practical. He said very clearly, Vedanta has been practical. Note that if you go back to the Upanishads, many of the teachings were given by kings and emperors. Bhagavad Gita, in which Vedanta society was it preached? Swami, you have classes we have classes on Gita every Friday. But where was it originally preached? Not in a Vedanta society, not in an ashram, not in the Himalayas. In the battlefield, this symbolizing the battlefield of life. In our lives, each of our lives is that battlefield. We have to fight the battle of life. Not enemies outside, enemies within ourselves. And Gita was preached there. So how is it that it's not practical? It's most practical. Swami Vivekananda said, those ancient monarchs, they were absolute monarchs. They were the busiest of people. And they're the greatest of responsibilities. Compared to them, we have lots of time. And if they could find time for the philosophy of Vedanta in their extremely busy, anxiety-ridden, responsibility-ridden lives, emperors and monarchs of past times, then we too can find time for Vedanta. It must be practical for us. He says they were not like the kings or queens of today who are figureheads, who do not have any real power or responsibility. They were people who had to rule empires. I must tell this story. Something funny. I remember I was talking about this in a very elite club of Calcutta. It's established by the British. It's called Calcutta Club. Those who are from Calcutta, you know that. And so the Rotary Club asked me to give a talk there. So they invited me. Even now they have a very strict dress code. Imagine, in Calcutta, today, you cannot enter that club in Indian dress. You need to have suitably attired, in a suit, and there's a proper formal attire. You cannot go in there like this. And I was there, and I could see the manager and others whispering to each other and looking at me. And then one of them very politely came up, Swami, can I help you? He thought maybe I was there for donations or something like that. I said, no, I'm an invited speaker. He said, that's all right then. And so I went in there, and I was, there's this lady sitting next to me, one of the organizers, and she started speaking with me. I said that the week before that I had gone to a place called Burdwan University to give a talk, and she said, oh, which room did you give your talk in? This lady was sitting there in that hall. She said, which place did you give your talk in? I said, I described the hall. Oh, that one. Okay, that was my room. I said, what? Your room? It's a big lecture hall. Then she smiled and she said, actually the university was donated by the Maharaja of Burdwan, the erstwhile king of Burdwan. So, India had many minor kings, principalities and the little kingdoms. So the king of Burdwan, and she is the princess of Burdwan. So the little girl used to stay in this huge lecture hall. Now it's a lecture hall. That was her room. She said that was our winter palace. And that's the University of Burdwan now. Well, okay, she's the first real princess I've met. Now, then I started giving my talk. And I was giving the talk about practicality of Vedanta. Without realizing what I was saying, I said this. They were people of real power and responsibility, not like the kings and princesses of today who have no responsibility and no power. And she was sitting right there. And the gentleman next to her with his elbow, he looked like this and he's talking about you. I was so embarrassed, but already the words were out of my mouth, I couldn't do anything. Practical Vedanta. If they found time for Vedanta, Vivekananda says, we definitely can find time for Vedanta. What does Vedanta teach? Vedanta gives us a philosophy of action. You see, Vedanta is not against action. It's got a bad press. Vedanta means you have to become a monk and sit in a cave, and that's why people ask, is Vedanta for us? We have to live in the world. We have responsibilities. No, Vedanta teaches us a philosophy of action. Krishna taught Arjuna philosophy of action. Gita is a philosophy of action. Vivekananda taught us a philosophy of action. He says action can come, one is inaction, not doing anything. That comes from tamas, the principle of darkness, of laziness, inactivity. Once Swami Vivekananda was coming back to India, and one of his disciples, I think it was Sister Nivedita probably, or Sister Christine, Western disciple, their first sight of India. And Sister Nivedita says to Vivekananda, "Oh Swami, how peaceful." From the ship, she sees it, how peaceful. And Vivekananda turned upon her angrily and he said, "No, this is the peace of the grave. People are under the dominion of a foreign power. They are illiterate. They are malnourished. They are weak and ignorant, and therefore it seems all very quiet and rural and idyllic and peaceful. No, this is not true peace." He says it's the peace of the grave. So inaction is not spirituality. It's not Vedanta. Then from inaction comes action with passion, with desire. I want something and I'm willing to work for it. That's much better actually. So from inaction to action with desire, with passion. That comes from what is called rajas, rajoguna. And Vivekananda says this too is not spiritual. This is also not spiritual. It binds, it traps you in this world. You just have to look outside. It's a city full of energy, full of power. This is one of the greatest cities on earth we are living in. And it's in the heart of that city. So it's energy, but it's mostly fueled by passion, by desire. I want, and therefore. And it leads to disasters. Even the most recent 2008 collapse, which the country and the world is still suffering from. What did it come out from? Not just from not from hard work. It came from greed. It came from desire. I want, and that fuels my work. But what is Vedanta? What is the philosophy of work? Swami Vivekananda said, intense work combined with supreme serenity, complete calmness. Complete calmness. Can I work intensely for the welfare of everybody? And yet, internally, in the midst of that work, I remain absolutely calm. That is the teaching of Vedanta. That's where Vedanta becomes practical. Is it possible? Is it possible to work like that? Swami Vivekananda said, yes. You see, there's this difference between working with the interest of one's own. A senior Swami once taught me this thing. I asked him, is it possible to work without passion, without desire? I want something, therefore I work. It sounds nice, work without any motive of gain. But is it possible? And this old Swami, he told me that my boy, there's a difference between disinterested work and uninterested work. In English, there are two words. Uninterested means do it somehow. I don't have anything to gain from it, so I have to do it somehow. I do it without any interest. That is tamasic, laziness. Disinterested means I have no axe to grind. I have nothing personal to gain from it, and yet I can do it perfectly. When you do a puja, a worship, you do it perfectly because you are offering it to God. You don't get anything back. You're not asking for anything back from it. So, in that way, can we spiritualize our work? There is an interest in it. If you say, is there no interest in it at all, no desire in it at all? There is. The desire is enlightenment. Spiritual enlightenment. No material gain, no personal gain. I want the good of everybody and my own spiritual enlightenment. Swami Vivekananda gave us this motto. Atmano mokshartham jagat hitaya cha. Meaning, for your own enlightenment. Not for monetary gain, not for power, not for name and fame. Only for enlightenment, only for God, for realizing God. For your own enlightenment and for the welfare of the world. You may not go out and start doing welfare to the whole world. You can start in your own little circle, in your office or in your school or in your family, in your apartment where you live there. Just the people around you. I am doing work, I am concerned for them rather than for myself. And I try to do good to everybody without expecting any return, because as Vivekananda said, the one who is giving, let him kneel down and offer. Not in charity. You are blessed that you can give. You are blessed that you can serve. The one who is giving, let him kneel down and offer. The one who is receiving, let him stand up and receive. It's not charity, it's spiritual practice. So the essentials of Vedanta remain the same. Vivekananda said the 2 points, essentials of Vedanta. That the divinity within us. We are not mere creatures of flesh and blood, born today and destined to die tomorrow. No. That's the body. We are not denying that the body is born and the body will die. It's a fact. But we are not the body. We are an immortal soul, an infinite consciousness working through this body. And Vedanta teaches us how we can find that out, how we can actually experience this, how we can realize it. Vivekananda again and again said, my mission in life can be put in a few words. It is to preach unto mankind their inner divinity and how to make it manifest in every movement of life. Not just realize it, not just read about it, not just know about it, not just give lectures about it, but actually make it manifest in life, in my behavior, in my thoughts, in my speech, in my actions. That is one great teaching. That consciousness, that by which we do everything, by which we see, we hear, we smell, we touch, we think, at the basis, the source of that is that pure consciousness. It is nothing unknown. Vivekananda said, the self, the pure self, is the most known of all. You know yourself first and then you know anything else. You just don't know yourself as you truly are. Vedanta will show you what you truly are. Vedanta is practical because it does not preach an unknown God. Vedanta does not say you have to believe. Vedanta says, take up the most evident fact of your life. What is the most evident fact of your life? That you exist. That I am. And investigate that. Vedanta will show you how to investigate that. Will teach you the techniques. And you will find that what you were seeking for in temples and churches and in meditation and in prayer and so on and so forth, you are that reality and you can actually experience it. That is the goal of human life. Vivekananda said, Vedanta teaches us to have faith in ourselves. Faith in ourselves not in a new agey kind of, I am great, look at me, not in that kind of thing. Faith in our spiritual self. Faith in our spiritual self. Vedanta teaches us God is within you. Have faith in the God who is within you and most evident. He said powerfully, even now young children in India quote this. The old religion said, he who does not believe in God is an atheist. The new religion says, he who does not believe in himself or herself is an atheist. He who does not believe in himself. It's not just rhetoric. It's not just positive psychology. You must believe in yourself. Not just that. It's very profound. It's rooted in Vedantic philosophy. that you are that divinity. It's shining forth from within you. Faith in yourself, what he taught again and again and again. Pray to all the gods in the world. The answer, if it does come at all, it comes from within you. You only mistake it as coming from God outside. That reality is within you. And the second thing he taught, the second message of Vedanta, is the oneness of all existence. This infinite existence within me, this pure consciousness. How many pure consciousnesses are there? Is each of us one separate pure consciousness? 7 billion human beings, 7 billion pure consciousnesses? Or trillions of living creatures, trillions of pure consciousnesses? Or is it one pure consciousness? And Vivekananda said it is one. Vedanta teaches you that it is one pure consciousness behind all of us. So this is the unity, the oneness of all existence. At the core of reality, we are all one. We are all one. And Vivekananda showed how this is the basis of all ethics. Why should I do good to others? He said, why should I not cut the throat of my neighbor if it gives me gain? Because you and your neighbor are one. Love thy neighbor. Why? Because you are one. At the deepest level, you and your neighbor are one. All of us, yes, including the most annoying neighbor you've got, you are one with them. He said, whom to praise and whom to blame, where praiser and praised, blamer are blamed, are but one. One alone exists. It appears as nature, so you. What is you and what is this world? They are both at their root one divine ground of being, one existence. So oneness of existence and the divinity of the man, or the divinity within. If you want to take two things away from practical Vedanta, take these two things away. The divinity within me and the oneness of existence. This is the basis of practical Vedanta. This is what he taught. One could go on, but I think I have run out of time. Vivekananda, he said that it may be that I shall see fit to give up this body, but I shall not cease to teach. I shall not cease to inspire humanity, and for centuries to come, until everybody in this universe knows that they are one with God. I shall be a voice without a form. He said that. And that is true. That is true. A few years back we celebrated the 150th birth anniversary of Swami Vivekananda. I was thinking, look, hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people in India and also all over the world. Till today they are being inspired by Vivekananda. Young children, they read Vivekananda, so many thousands of people, their lives are being transformed. You see, when Vivekananda lived in his mortal body, there were many other great people. In the 19th century, India was dotted by great personalities. It was a time of transition and transformation and a renaissance in Indian society. So there were many great people. But as you go through history, they all fade back into the sepia tones of history. 100 years later, the difference between Vivekananda, he stands taller and taller and taller among his contemporaries in both East and West. And this is just 100 years, 150 years since his birth, and barely 100 years since the work he did. He said, only another Vivekananda can understand what this Vivekananda has done. I have given you enough for 1500 years. The power that has been set in motion will work for 1500 years now. It's only 150 years. The world has been transformed. Many transformations have happened. Phil Goldberg shows that in his book. In this country too. Not many people can trace it back to Vivekananda, what he did here. But they are traced back to Vivekananda. I was reading incredible things. No time, but I'll mention one or two and end. There was a book published, Vivekananda, The Turning Point. So his contribution to India. In one place they mentioned that he was actually the first among the reformers, social and religious reformers in 19th century India, to speak of India as a nation. There were others. Others came afterwards, but he was the first. Most people spoke in terms of Bengal or Maharashtra or Punjab or Tamil Nadu. But to speak of India as a whole, this inclusive approach, it was like the soul of a new nation, of an ancient nation being reborn as a new nation. Another place they say, the Constitution of India, they're studying, a Supreme Court lawyer has written this beautiful article. He says the Constitution of modern India, it reflects no one as much as it does Vivekananda's ideas. This beautiful amalgamation of the ancient and the new, of the modern and the noble ideals of India's spiritual past. So this thing together, centuries to come, we will see more and more of that. We are still, it's like if you live within 100 years of Jesus' birth, 100 years of Buddha's birth, you can see it spreading, but it has still not reached anywhere near its blazing glory, which will come in the centuries ahead. So we still live in the light of dawn. Those who live in the light of dawn have a special advantage. They are close to the source. They're close to the source. Vivekananda lives in his words. Okay, I'll share one thing here with you. I heard this from a monk who got a spiritual revelation and illumination. Intense spiritual practice, and then the greatest spiritual revelation, illumination of his life. It happened not during the meditation which he was doing for weeks and weeks and weeks, but later when he had reduced the meditation, he was relaxing in the Himalayas in one little cottage and reading Vivekananda. He read a few lines, which I will not quote here, and he says the scales fell off from his eyes. God shone forth. He said, how could I have missed it? Inside and outside, everywhere. And the test was, that monk said, years have passed, it has not diminished, it's always there. Real illumination, it is possible. You read Vivekananda, it's possible. It will happen. There is a special power working through Vivekananda's words, a voice without form. It is the power of the avatar who transferred himself into Vivekananda. That's what shines forth from the works of Vivekananda. You want spiritual illumination, you will get it. You want strength in life, you will get it. You want faith in God, you will get it. You want ideas for transforming yourself and society, you will get it. I know so many people who have done remarkable work. One or two ideas they got from Vivekananda. In India, I've seen so many pieces. Okay, I can go on and on and on. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purna Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Shri Ram Krishna